Today's scripture text is from the lectionary, and I got to tell you, the reason you'll hear me most often deliver messages from the lectionary, to me it's a challenge. I obviously, since I move around from church to fill pulpit, it'd be pretty easy for me to have one sermon and just keep sharing it. And today we're going to do something just a little different. Back at spring break, preached about potato chips, and that's all I heard 2 weeks ago when I walked in the door. Hey, going to do more potato chips? No. But we talked about honey and honeybees. And today we're going to get away from food, so you'll just have to, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. So the scripture today, and pardon my voice, I think it's allergies. The scripture comes from Luke chapter 10, verse 38 through 42. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said, but Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me." "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about many things, but only one thing is needed. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her." Please pray with me. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of all our hearts be pleasing in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. So the title of today's message is, "Are you kidding me?" There's a pretty good chance that most of us have the fact in common that just sometimes our good intent and careful planning get in the way of the purpose of our intentions. This is a very short scripture and a very simple lesson, but I think it's worth taking a look at and just dissecting it just a little bit. From the Gospel of John, chapter 1, we've learned that Mary and Martha are the same two with whom Jesus had his encounter over the raising of their brother Lazarus from the dead. Martha was Mary and Lazarus' older sister. Mary's the one who poured perfume on Jesus' feet after washing them and then drying them with her hair. They were at the home of Simon the leper. This is the same Mary who in Luke's chapter 7 was described as a sinner, and not the type of person by whom a prophet of Jesus' stature would want to have contact. And if you'll remember, Mary was chastised by the people present when she washed Jesus' feet with the perfume, that first of all, she should be touching him. And second is that perfume's so expensive, if I remember correctly, about a year's wages worth of perfume, that maybe she should sell it and the money be given to the poor, the hungry. But remember what Jesus told them at that time. He told them that woman's priorities are in order. And because she had so much sin to be forgiven, that she loved him even more than those who had little sin. And then Jesus went on to astound those gathered in the room when he told Mary that because of her faith, her sins were forgiven. I think we can agree that it's obvious that Mary really did have her priorities in order. She understood the importance of this man named Jesus, and she fully understood that only he was the key to her wholeness and her forgiveness. Now we know from what is told throughout the Gospels of the New Testament that Jesus and his disciples were a close-knit group, and they had a special camaraderie. They knew each other. But we also know from those same stories in Scriptures that too often the disciples didn't really get what Jesus was putting out. They weren't picking up what he was putting down. They just didn't understand. They didn't see the big picture. But we can see from Mary's repeated actions that she got it. She understood where Jesus was coming from. And I think that's what Jesus is telling Martha in this passage. Here's the picture. Jesus and the disciples have been out traveling all over Galilee. They've been teaching, they've been working hard, and they're returning to Jerusalem for the Feast of the Tabernacle. He's in the area. Let's stop by and see our friends, Mary and Martha. Let me tell you a little bit about the Feast of the Tabernacle. It was Israel's Thanksgiving feast. It was a fall festival. And they acknowledged God for the provisions that he had provided them. And in this time, it's a real happy celebration, and it's about a week long. The feast remembers, the celebration of this feast, they remember and hold symbolism of Israel's deliverance from Egypt and their subsequent wandering in the wilderness for 40 years. You see, when they were in the wilderness, obviously, they lived in tents, which meant the tabernacle was also a tent. So part of this celebration is the participants would build these booths, or called a sikach. I'd have to spell it for you, and then I still can't pronounce it, okay? But during this time, Israel lived in tents, and they worshiped in the tabernacle, which was also a tent. So to remember that, the Jews built these small tabernacles or booths, and the walls were braided branches and thatched roofs. And there were specific requirements for the building of these booths. Still today, to fulfill the commandment, these booths are constructed according to these same requirements. The construction of the booth is as follows. Now, stick with me on this, okay? It must be made of something that grew from the ground and was cut off, such as tree branches, corn stalks, bamboo reeds, sticks, or 2x4s. It must be constructed so that the wind won't blow it away. Remember that. The roof must be left loose. It must be constructed so the wind won't blow it away, but the roof must be left loose. Not tied together or tied down, and in the construction, the roofing material must be placed sparsely enough so that rain can get in, and preferably sparsely enough so that the stars can be seen at night. But the spacing can't be any more than 10 inches. Also, it must allow in more light than it would provide shade. And for 7 days during a celebration, they're to live in these booths as a vivid reminder of the days in the wilderness living in tents. And then there were some other requirements for this celebration. They would carry the citrus fruit, the etrog, which symbolized the fruit of the promised land. And the Jews made a lulah, which was made of branches. It sounds like a fan that they would use during the service. They'd wave it at different times during the service. This was a big Jewish celebration. And there's so much to do and so much to get ready. And right in the middle of all this preparation, there's a knock on the door. Now, Martha's in taking care of things. Mary's probably in the living room. She answers the door, and the next thing Martha hears is, "Jesus!" And Martha goes, "Now what?" Right? She doesn't get it. She walks into the living room. Oh, it really is Jesus. So I'm in the middle of all this preparation. She walks in the living room and she finds Jesus and his merry band of disciples, all of them. They're at your house. And can you see it? I mean, can you see Martha? I wonder how she greeted them. Ah, Martha. You know Martha, the oldest of the bunch. She was the oldest of the three siblings, Lazarus and Mary and Martha. She's not only in charge, she's probably in control. She's the one who wants things to be just right. And now she gets a visit from Jesus and his entourage, and she's not prepared. I'll bet Martha had CDO. You know what that is? That's OCD, but if you got it real bad, it's got to be in alphabetical order, so it's CDO. Compulsive disorder obsessive. You see, what's Martha doing? You can see her. She's scurrying about. She's making sure Lazarus, now wait a minute. Lazarus probably didn't really live with them. We don't have proof of that, but I'll bet he did. He might as well. He's over there all the time. She has to make sure Lazarus has his wallet and his loose change cleared off the dining room table, because you don't want company to see that. And what about all those important papers that he's going to file away someday? Well, I'll get to them. Well, no, we got to get those put away. What about those shoes? He keeps sticking his shoes underneath that end table. That's not where they belong. Go put them in the closet, right? But he's done it again. He's moved that end table. He likes it a little closer to his chair, and she keeps moving it over here for decoration, and he keeps bringing it back. It's got to be in the right spot. Then there's that stack of old newspapers. Why does he collect all these news? What are you going to do with those newspapers? Let's get them out of here. I can hear now. Just who does Lazarus think he is? Just because he was raised from the dead after 4 days. I mean, come on. What will the company think? How can we have friends here if the house looks like we actually live in it? And wait, you smell that? What is that? Lazarus. What? Now let me finish. You going to blame it on the dog again? Go take a bath. He hadn't had a bath, is what I'm getting at. Hold on, Terry. Why, we need to get this place together. You see, Martha was tasked with tidying and preparing the meals and feeding the animals, and she has to get herself together, and they have to prepare their little booth. Wait, Martha looks around. Where's Mary? My sister, where's Mary? She's what? She's sitting at Jesus' feet, joining an idle conversation. She doesn't have a care for all that needs to be done. Why? Jesus. Jesus. Look at me, poor me. I got to do all the work. I'm having to do all the work in preparation for the feast. And she's just sitting around with you. Well, I've just about had enough. I can't believe she expects me to do it all. Jesus? Jesus! Are you kidding me? Look at Mary. Tell her to help me. And look at Jesus' reply in verse 41. He says, Martha. And then the second time he says her name, I figure he says it with a little chuckle. Oh, Martha. Sure, you're worried and upset over many things, but only one thing is needed. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. Now understand, I'm not trying to say Martha's a bad person. It's not that we think she has no desire to follow the teachings of Jesus. As a matter of fact, if you remember, it was her faith in the first place that allowed Jesus to raise Lazarus from the dead after 4 days. It's just that maybe Martha, like so many of us from time to time, got caught up with doing things for God, and she forgot that she needed to spend time with God. We can be so busy being godly that we lose the Spirit of God from inside. And I'd like to offer you this takeaway this morning of this scripture. I feel that we should learn that it's more important to let God fill us from within than it is for us to be so busy doing God's work. I'm not saying don't do God's work. Make sure God is filling you from within. Let's choose what is lasting over that which is temporary. Let's be deliberate in finding personal, one-on-one time to spend with God. I feel we should allow ourselves a chance to hear God and to feel God. And then we might be better able to discern God's plan and will in our lives. Jesus wants to spend time with us. Are you kidding me?